Hey, what's up? I'm Fireaxe, and today I'm going to be giving you 5 tips to improve your aim in Battlefield 1 using snipers. I personally play on PC, but these tips are also valid if you play on consoles, so don't worry, you will not be left out. With that said, let's get started. Hey, just to let you know, these tips that are coming up are for the inexperienced player as well as for the experienced player. So don't worry if you are very good or very bad, these tips can help you. But of course, the experienced player will learn a lot less than the inexperienced player. So I couldn't do a aiming video without talking about sensitivity, which is a huge point in Battlefield 1 and in all first-person shooters. So tip number 1 is sensitivity for aiming. So first we're going to go over the PC people using a mouse, and then we will go over the controllers. And whether you're using a controller or a mouse, the goal of sensitivity is to have the correct sensitivity to allow rapid reflex movement, but allowing you to get the perfect amount of precision. And on top of that, you want to gain muscle memory so that you're not even thinking how much you need to move your controller, your thumb, or your mouse. You'd want it to be a reflex. And for that to happen, you need to pick and find the correct sensitivity for you and not change it, or if you do decide to change it, only change it in small incremental amounts and do that very rarely. So for all of you using a mouse, you've probably heard of DPI, and I'm not going to go into the details of what it is, but just know that if you use a DPI that is too high and it is not native to the resolution of your mouse, you will start to introduce a bunch of background noise, which is not necessarily good if you want to be very precise. So either you want to be using a DPI that is native to the resolution of your mouse, or what I suggest is using a DPI between 600 and 1200. And this of course is going to vary depending on the mouse and the player and how sensitive you like your gameplay to be. But if you want to be very precise with a mouse, a lower sensitivity is generally better. But it does decrease the amount of movement you can get and twitch reflexes to turn around in a split second. So that is the downside if you have a sensitivity that is way too low. So it always comes down to this when it comes to sensitivity, having good accuracy, but allowing you to have good reflexes and twitch reflexes. And that goes whether you're using a mouse or a controller. So finally for the DPI you're going to use is of course going to depend on this in-game sensitivity and your personal preference, of course. I said to use a DPI generally between 600 and 1200, but you can go between 400 and 1600. It all depends on personal preference. So the second part of this video is Windows sensitivity. And in Windows sensitivity, you should, if possible, use raw mouse input settings in your games. And please disable mouse acceleration if you can. This is terribly bad for your muscle memory. And when you want to improve your aim, muscle memory is everything. Though mouse acceleration can be good for basic desktop tasks, in games, if you use mouse acceleration, a given distance of movement from your mouse will not always equal the same amount of distance of movement in-game. And finally, there's the in-game sensitivity, which I recommend putting between 5 and 15 if you're using a mouse. So either depending on the type of movement you want, so high reflex and movement across the map, you're going to move your mouse around like you can see right now, which allows you to turn around quickly and be pretty precise as well with the sensitivity that you've chosen right before. Or, as you can see now, for more precise movement, you're going to use your wrist to do the very precise fine-tuning and zeroing in when you're shooting at a great distance. When it comes to sensitivity using a controller, there's a lot less to it, and it's more up to personal preference than anything else, though you should keep in mind that a higher sensitivity gives you more reflexes but lower precision, and a lower sensitivity gives you more precision but less reflexes. And that brings us to tip number 2, which is especially useful for people using a controller. So tip number 2 is zoom sensitivity, and if you're not familiar with this, it's a type of setting that allows you to fine-tune the sensitivity for each of the different zoom levels. So for example, if you want to be able to have high twitch reflexes when you're not aiming down sight, you can put the basic sensitivity pretty high up, and if you want to have high precision when you're zooming in, you can lower the sensitivity for that specific magnification level. And this is especially useful for people using controllers, because with controllers, it's kind of difficult to fine-tune your aiming. I mean, unless you are very, very good. And it's because of this fact that when you play on a console, you have the option to enable auto-aim or auto-tracking, which makes aiming a little bit easier. So using this zoom sensitivity is very useful for consoles because it allows them to have twitch reflexes while keeping high precision when aiming, especially using a sniper. So I would highly recommend playing around with that and trying to find the right sensitivity for you if you use a controller for your gaming. Otherwise, if you use a mouse, I mean, you can use this feature, it can be helpful, but I wouldn't play around too much with it because normally you can be fairly accurate with a mouse as well, though some people are going to prefer having a lower sensitivity when they zoom in, but keep in mind that doing this can deteriorate some of your muscle memory, especially if you already have some built up. So tip number 3 is zoom level and magnification on your scopes when trying to snipe. So as you probably already know, there are different types of magnification levels for different types of snipers, and you should pay attention to this depending on the engagement distance that you will be using and depending on the sniper rifle that you will be using as well. So I think this is pretty obvious, but if you're going to be sniping from a semi-close to medium range, you should pick a lower zoom level. So I would say between 3 and 5 times. And if you are going to be doing long-range sniping, you should get a bigger magnification. Though, having a lower magnification for long-range sniping can increase your twitch reflexes and can still be used quite effectively, because even when you zoom in, you get a bigger view of the actual battlefield that you have in front of you. I mean, if you pick a zoom level that's too high and your engagement distance is going to be very close, you are going to lose track of your target all the time. As soon as that target is going to move, he's going to step out of your scope and what you're basically aiming at, so keeping track of him, especially if he's moving, is going to be very difficult. And if you pick a magnification that is too low, you're going to have difficulty aiming at targets, especially if they're at longer ranges. So it all depends on the context, the range that you're shooting at, and the sniper rifle that you're using. So your choice of sniper rifle is also going to depend on how well you will perform in different types of scenarios. There are sniper rifles that are meant for medium to close range encounters, and there are those that are meant for long range encounters. So on top of choosing the right zoom level for your sniper, you should also pick the correct sniper for the different type of encounter that you're going to have. I generally tend to revolve around 3 different types of snipers, so I use the Gewehr .98, the sniper variant, for long-range encounters, and that is because the muzzle velocity of this sniper is the highest of all the snipers that are available, so that means I have to lead the target a lot less if he's moving, especially at a distance. Then there's the SMLE, and I use this sniper rifle for a bunch of different types of encounters, mainly close to medium range, but it can still be used effectively at longer ranges, though of course it won't be as good as the Gewehr 98. And then the last sniper rifle that I would recommend is the Gewehr 95 marksman variant. The sniper is very effective at close to medium range, and it can be good for longer ranges, though not as good as the Gewehr 98, but there's a drawback. This sniper rifle does not have a sweet spot mechanic, and that can be a major drawback, but considering how fast this gun can put a round back in the chamber, and considering the fact that when you reload an entire magazine, a clip of 5 rounds at a single time, this gun can be used very effectively, especially at medium ranges, though I do think this gun is probably more suited for more experienced players. Then that brings us to tip number 4, which is about suppression and movement across the map and what you need to do to be more accurate in the game itself. So most of you are probably aware of the suppression mechanic that's in game. This is a mechanic that decreases your accuracy when you're being shot at by different players. So even if you're not hit by a bullet whizzing by you will cause your scope to sway even more than it already does, and it will decrease your accuracy, so your bullets will spread a lot more. So when you're suppressed, your screen gets kind of blurry, and when this happens, I would suggest taking cover, because if you're trying to be accurate with a sniper rifle and you're suppressed, you are going to have a very hard time hitting your target, and it can be frustrating, and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by showing yourself when you are suppressed. So then that brings me to my second point, which is movement. You should always move. You should never camp in a specific area if you want to be effective as a sniper rifle, because when you kill somebody, they know where you are. And if you stay in that place, they will generally come and hunt you down. And if you can move all the time, then the person you just killed will have no idea where you are, and you can keep on sniping generally more effectively. On top of that, movement allows you to get a general bigger feeling for what's happening on the map. And by doing this, your situational awareness is going to be improved, decreasing the chances of getting knifed in the back. And that brings me to my third point. When you are a sniper, never go prone. This is the worst thing you can do, because basically any other sniper on the map that knows where you are is going to have no difficulty pinpointing your head and getting that one-shot headshot kill. So instead, what you should do when you are sniping is when you are trying to acquire your target or you are looking for a target to hit, you should always move. Even when you are looking down the sight, this will make it so that other snipers will have a lot more difficulty hitting you. However, as soon as you are ready to take the shot, you should focus your breath and stop moving, because if you take a shot while you're moving, your accuracy will be way off. And finally, tip number 5, which is pretty obvious, it's play the objective. You're a sniper. You're going to help your team if you are spotting the enemies, if you are helping them scout out the area and make sure that they don't get ambushed in the back while they're capping an objective. Not only will you be helping your team by doing this, but you will also get more points, spotting points, and things like that. So you should always try to run with a flare gun, because this is very helpful, A, for your team, and B, for yourself, like that you know where your enemies are. And don't forget, just because you're a sniper doesn't mean you have to stay in one point helping your team. You can actually go onto the objective and help your team as well. You still have a sidearm, so that can still be very effective. And when you're on that point, you can scout out for enemies trying to get on the point as well as a sniper rifle. And that will help you get even more points, so that's a good thing to consider. And by helping out your team and going onto the objective, you are naturally going to move, which is what I said in tip number 4. So here, you're going to have less chances of being killed in the back or just camping in one place and getting sniped by a random sniper. Anyways, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening all the way to the end, if you did. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment with what you think of these sniper tips, and leave a comment down below as well with what you use to help you improve your aim. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.